What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the Homie Hangout, where we help others move in excellence. And I'm going to talk about this group called the Justice Eight. They were called the Victorville Eight at first, but a group of individuals, kind of the most notable is a guy named Alex Enamorado, who were arrested by the San Bernardino County Sheriffs late last week on a whole slew of charges, right? False imprisonment and weapons charges and criminal threats and just all kinds of stuff, right? Conspiracy, of course. And so I was waiting till today because they had court today. This was their first court hearing. And I wanted to see if they would get bail. They did not get bail. So they will be spending Christmas in jail, which I think is ridiculous. But so they're going to stay in there. I want to give you guys kind of my thoughts on the situation. I'm pretty familiar with the work that Alex does and his story. And I think there's a lot of misinformation out there, or just lack of information, for people to make an informed decision about this guy and what he does and the other individuals with him, right? And to be clear, it's a much larger group than these eight that make these things possible. But these are some of the more popular ones with, Instagram channels and YouTube channels that have larger followings. So if you've been on Instagram, you've probably seen the videos of Alex, right? Because over the last couple of years, in particular in Southern California, but he came up to Oakland, he's been out to Vegas, he's been out to New York, he's gotten around, but especially like San Bernardino County, LA County, when street vendors are attacked or harassed, here comes Alex, right? He's like a neighborhood, Superman, so to speak, right? And he shows up, and him and his people, they find out where these individuals live. They find out where these individuals work. They confront them. They bully them, right? But I'm gonna get to that point in a minute, because that's kind of the biggest criticism against him, and I think it's either short-sighted or just flat out wrong, and I'll explain why. But so, anyways, they're arrested for all these charges, right? And to get an idea of Alex's get down, because the San Bernardino sheriff, came out and said, "Oh well." They doctor these videos just for views. It's all clickbait. Him and his people are making money off of all this, just like any other social media influencer. To be clear, Alex, at least, all of his pages are demonetized, right? He doesn't make any money on the clicks. A lot of his pages get shut down. He has to start new ones. The reach of his content really centers around the number of other people who believe and support what he does and shares those videos, right, on TikTok or Instagram or YouTube or whatever. But so he's not making money off of this stuff. And he has a good job, right, that pays him well and allows for him to kind of be mobile and do the work that he does. So the clickbait thing makes no sense, right? Now, the bully thing, you got to kind of understand where Homeboy comes from, right? So he comes from a town, I believe it's pronounced Cudahy, right? Cudahy. Forgive me if I'm pronouncing it wrong, but I think it's Cudahy. And it's down there, like, south of LA. And he grew up influenced by the neighborhood, right? Influenced by the violence, the audio warfare, the gangbanging, everything else. I'm not going to say that he was a Southsider, but he was definitely influenced by that world and was a participant in it, right? Was in the streets, getting active, so to speak, right? As the kids would say. And when he was 17, he had a teenage girlfriend, and she wound up losing her life from a stray bullet, right? And that stray bullet, she'd have never been in its path had she not been with Alex and kind of been in those circles, And he has stated publicly that he's always kind of felt like he had her blood on his hands. And she used to tell him, like, what are you doing? You had this potential, you're this passionate guy. You got to leave this lifestyle alone, right? He also had a brother. He has two brothers, but one of them passed away. And that brother also used to get at him, about the same thing. And so that was a kind of a pivot point in his life. And then he started to kind of ease up, and started to transition as a lot of young men do from the neighborhood stuff. And he was beat up by the police, right? He was beat up by the police a couple times, but in particular, the Cudahy Police Department whooped him like bad, right? And they had a history in that area of abusing residents. It was a lot of just kind of reject cops from other regions that would go be the police down there and acted with impunity. And so there was a lot of citizen complaints. There was a lot of things going on. Alex stepped in. He sued the police department. I think others had as well, but he sued the police department. And around 2010, the Cudahy Police Department was disbanded, right? It was disbanded, and now that area is patrolled by the LA Sheriff's Department. We know the LA Sheriff's Department has a long history of gangbanging and abuse too, but they're actually, life is better for residents of that area now as they're patrolled by the sheriffs than it was under the police department. And that showed him that community power, political action can actually produce tangible results, right? That taking real steps can produce real results. And that sort of passion, that accomplishment sort of pushed him forward. And he wound up getting a job knocking on doors, doing political organizing, realized he's pretty good at that. And so just his life experiences kind of led him to this moment several years ago where he became a more high profile figure, but the majority of the work is behind the scenes, right? But even on camera, you see him raising money for vendors, right? And giving thousands and thousands of dollars to them, going around giving vendors pepper spray, teaching them about their rights, lobbying for laws to change, right? All these different activities, meeting with community members, following up with individuals that don't want to be on camera, and organizing them. And so it's a lot more than what you see on camera. But the idea that the footage is manipulated somehow to send some other message, when somebody is taking flight on a vendor, you're not editing that. You're not making that up, right? When somebody's sitting there foaming at the mouth, yelling all these racial slurs, or running their car into their cart, or pulling down their tent and pushing over their food, or robbing them at gunpoint, that's not edited stuff. You know what I mean? That those things happen, and they happen frequently. And it's a trip because just a handful of years ago, when we first started seeing a real flood of videos of vendors in particular getting attacked, they were posted by people trying to brag, trying to flex, right? Which is disgusting. I think it's always been disgusting, but that was the mindset. And you don't really see that anymore. It's not the cool thing to do to harass these vendors, right? It was never cool, don't get me wrong. But now when you see the videos, it's because oftentimes vendors are filming, but it's because there's going to be accountability. And so Alex has been questioned. You guys can go find interviews with him on Hoodstocks and these other platforms where he talks a lot about his life and his mindset. But he's like, hey, look, I grew up willing to die for my neighborhood, willing to die for things that weren't really tangible and didn't really matter. So am I putting my life on the line in the work that I do here? Of course. And he's like 5 foot nothing. You know what I'm saying? He's a little dude, but he got heart, right? And he came up in a culture and an environment where you can't be a punk. He's still not a punk. It's just not, he's just using that in what I think is a much more healthy way, right? And people prey on vendors, people prey on immigrants because they see them as easy targets, right? Because they see them as vulnerable. And a lot of them are for various reasons, right? Be it their age or their health or their immigration status or just the fact that they're just people trying to work, bro. They're not hood people. They're not violent people. They don't want confrontation. They just, want to make little tamales and sell them. Like they don't want all that. But people come and bring that smoke to them, whether it's people from neighborhoods, no matter what your race, right? It isn't a race thing at all. No matter what your race, or whether it's just some, high and mighty Karen types, male and female, who are out there yelling and throwing a fit. Alex comes through with a lot of other people, and it's like, hey, have that same energy with me. Now you don't see him swing first, right? You don't see him engage that way. Will he call people out? Yeah. And will he call people names and use language that is aggressive? Absolutely. But it's not just random people. He's not just driving around looking for folks to pick on. He's not just trying to stir up stuff. It's always a response. You know what I mean? It's always a follow-up to the ridiculous bullying of somebody else. So is he a bully sometimes? Yeah, absolutely. But he's a bully to people that are bullying others. And I personally think that's respectable. And we know that sometimes that's the only way those folks will learn, right? So it is not okay for you to go and engage in this behavior in the community and think that because of your status or because of anything else, you're going to get away with it. Because we will come knock at your door, and if you want all that smoke and all that action, cool, come outside and swing, and let's see what happens, right? But we will go to your job and see if you are a reflection of your company's values, right? And if not, then that's for them to decide. But it is not safe to just run around and harass people, right? And it shouldn't be safe for them to do that. But not everybody is built for this level of confrontation. Not everybody is built for this fight. And Alex and the people with him are. There are a ton of people that come along with this stuff. And I know that his tactics, right, are not the tactics that everybody is in favor of. And that's fine. There's a lot of other tactics. There's the legislation and getting laws passed. There's, the financial support. There's a ton of other ways that individuals who don't want to be out there with a bullhorn or whatever can get involved to provide support. And that's really where the most important work happens. And that's where most of the work happens. It just doesn't end up on camera, right? So best as I can tell, these arrests kind of stem from an incident in September in Victorville, where there was a fight at a football game. A lot of you guys probably seen a video. There was a fight at a football game. It looks kind of chaotic. And then all of a sudden there's a grown man who's a cop and picks up this 16-year-old girl and dips her on her head, right? And she goes to the hospital with like skull issues and back issues. She was tore up. And so they marched, right? Because it's not just about vendors. And it's not just about raza vendors. It's not just about raza. It's about abuse. It's about bullying. It's about police harassment, right? It's about these individuals who feel they could just run around and yell racist, crazy stuff to people and spit in their face whenever they want to for any reason or no reason. Whether it's at a street vendor or it's, in a bathroom with somebody over a bunch of nothing. It doesn't matter. But so they protested. They marched down to the Victorville police station, was like, hey, we want to know the name of the cop that did this, right? And then they went marching through the community. And there was like a gas station, and some car was wanting to pull out of the gas station, and dude got out all pissed off. Actually, I think took off on a couple of the females, including Wendy, which is Alex's, fiance, I believe. And so a scuffle ensues, and some people got picked up, and they got released a few hours later. It wasn't a big deal, but there's that issue of Fontana. I believe it was the city of Fontana. Recently, the mayor tried to get a restraining order against Alex, saying Alex Enamorado is not allowed in the city of Fontana. Well, a lot of things happened in Fontana, and he was there often, right? Because of the behavior of some of the residents of Fontana, because of the behavior of the police in Fontana. And that restraining order failed, right? The court threw it out and was like, yeah, right, that's not how the system works. And so I think it's a clear sign of law enforcement really being upset at the people power that is showing up and finding a way to silence that and finding a way to discourage others from engaging in the same behavior, right? Alex and his crew, right, the Justice 8 and the dozens and dozens and dozens of people that support them, they're disrupting the order. But this is an order that needs to be disrupted. But that's when you become a threat. You're a threat to the state when you disrupt the order of the state. And marching down the street and bringing a bullhorn to the mayor's house and having a big old banda outside at 1 o'clock in the morning, like all of this stuff disrupts the order of things. But ask the people that are on the receiving end of this harassment and this abuse and this oppression, and they will tell you this order needs to be disrupted. And what's happening is not illegal. What Alex and his crew does may be offensive to some people. It may be loud. It may be obnoxious. But it's to people who are being loud and obnoxious and offensive to other community members. And the law enforcement and the political bodies are not doing their job. I remember when Alex got into it with the security guard, right? And it led to a big old thing, right? And there was a little scuffle inside the store, and the security guard sprayed him with pepper spray, and like it was back and forth. And I heard him talk about it, And he's like, man, the first time I got a call from the family because he had been harassing them, I just went and talked to the dude. No camera, no nothing. I just pulled up and talked to him. And we came to an understanding, or so I thought. And then a month and a half later, I get a call that he hit the lady and hit an elderly guy or a handicapped guy or something. And that's when things kind of escalated. But Alex was detained for that situation. And as he said then, I wouldn't be here if the police did their job. Because the family, the vendors filed, they called the police, they wanted to file a report, but the police made it so difficult for them and was like, well, we'll file a report, but we might take you to jail too if he says anything about you, and basically intimidated them out of continuing with the process so that they wouldn't have to do the work associated with the arrest. And that's what paved the way for this individual to continue his abusive behavior, which is then what led to the reaction of Alex and everybody else going out there and addressing the situation. And now Otto lost his job and, all kinds of stuff. There was a big buyout for the vendor. And those are great things after, right? Those are great blessings that come after. But I tell you, these vendors would rather not be robbed and beat up and abused and not have a buyout the next week than to go through all of this and then, yes, get some financial, benefit from the outpouring of support from the community. It's not a willing trade, at least most of the time. And so it's just one example, though, of if the system was doing its job, doing the job that they say they do, right, of protecting and serving, then you wouldn't need people like the Justice 8 to run around. They wouldn't be necessary. And so, anyways, I support Alex. I support the Justice 8. I support the work that they do. I think it is respectable work. I don't think he's doing anything wrong. And I think the charges are trumped up charges, right? I've kind of read through them and I could sort of connect the dots on certain situations, as it applies to him, which I'm not going to get into here, but I think it's petty. I think it's an overreach. They're overcharged. I'm kind of surprised that they didn't get bailed today. And that's why I held off doing the video, because I figured, they get bailed and they're going to speak for themselves and that's it. But right now they can't speak for themselves. And so I just wanted to touch on a situation, man. I feel like in the sense of the word homie and the way that we use it as an acronym here of helping others move in excellence, I really think Alex is a homie, man. And as are the other 7 with him. And like I said, the many, many more that support, and it's become a movement. And I don't think this movement is going anywhere, regardless what happens to these individuals. And as corrupt and crooked and messed up as our system is, there's still a court system that he has to go through. They shouldn't be detained. They shouldn't be arrested. They shouldn't, have been denied bail. I get that the county is putting on a hell of a case, but there's a series of checks and balances, in this process. And I think when it's all said and done, these individuals are going to be vindicated. And in the meantime, I know that there are armies of people that stand to support them. But so to wrap it up, my final talking points, man, the dude's not a crook. He's not hustling nobody. He's not robbing nobody. There is a nonprofit that he created. All of that money goes to the vendors. If you've been following him beyond just kind of the sensational stuff, you will see him out there giving out money. You see him out there meeting with people. You see him out there meeting with community leaders of other races and trying to find ways to reduce these issues, right? And build bridges and not walls. And you really get a sense of the person's get down. And then hearing where he comes from and the kind of lifestyle that he comes from, man, you got to respect it, bro. You got to respect it. He took his upbringing and he's using it for the greater good, man, and him and others. And so respect to them. Help others move in excellence. That's what homies do. Help yourself at the same time because you're worth it. Help your community because they need you. And follow along, man, the Justice 8 on Instagram. And if there's any way that you can offer support, I encourage you to. Take care.